Up to episode 4 already. Alright, sticking with the wheel theme, I'm going to slap some of these tyres on. I'm going to try a Sam Pilgrim tyre fitting trick, and then after that we'll get into how to fit a Cush Core, and I'll run you through a tutorial on that one. Tyres I went with, I've gone with the Schwalbe Hansdampf. This is a sticky compound, or a soft compound rubber. They've got the orange stripe on there with the ADEX logos and compounds. This is a pretty good blend of tyre as far as a Trials rider's perspective, I guess. Reasonably stiff sidewall, fairly good sidewall protection. The tyre tread is non-directional, so either way is good. Great for a Trials bike because you're pretty much braking backwards as much as you are forwards. Alright, now for my next trick. I've always wanted to try this Sam Pilgrim tyre fitting trick. Let's see if it works. So, 1, 2. It works. Anyway, alright, let's get into this tutorial for the Cush Core. Alright, Cush Core 101. To start with, you got to choose your size. So depending on your tyre capacity. So if you're a lightweight cross-country rider, this one here is recommended for up to 2.4 tyres. If you're an enduro rider, like to smash it into rocks, that's the Pro, that's the original one. Super dense, a bit more weight in it obviously, and less of these sort of cutouts. But if you're whacking it into rocks, that's the go-to for most people. And then if you are a plus rider or an e-bike rider that has like a 2.8 tyre, 2.8 to 3 inch, that's where these ones come into play. Super wide, not much heavier than the Pro, but still got those cutouts to accommodate for the extra width and not get too much heavier. Alright, first things first, get your bare aluminium rim, and to get the best adhesion for your actual tubeless tape, run a layer of electrical tape around the centre first, and that makes the tubeless rim tape really stick to the tape and then helps it stay stuck to the aluminium later on. Special Cush Core valve, conveniently green to match Mech, but more importantly they have holes out the sides, and I've noticed a new hole at the back as well, so the sealant comes out the side because the insert itself will be hard up against the back of that when it's in, so it won't allow air or sealant to get in. Take them through there, and it's got this little rubber seat on here, and that will squash into place. So you're pushing that fairly hard in, little rubber grommet, and then the locking nut, and pushing hard with your thumb on this side whilst doing that up. You should be able to get pretty tight. Sometimes I get these guys out and add a little bit more. Alright, next up, we'll grab the insert. For the purpose of the video, we're going to use the Pro size one. Most protection out of all of them, and it's also the most challenging to fit because there's the least amount of stretch in it. So starting with, there's a few of these little grooves in there, so I like to line that up with the valve, and that'll allow air and sealant to pass around the easiest. So work this around. You'll get it to a fairly tight spot, and this can be muscled on. And there is a technique they use in the official videos using the handle of a hammer, which works fine, but not always necessary, depends on the rim combination. So that was pretty good. Alright, next up we'll grab the tyre. Gonna need some soapy water. So just a little spray all the way around, lining the tyre logo up with the valve. Important if you're a professional or you just like your OCD to line up. So on a Schwalbe tyre, it's a good note to have is that the A lines up both sides. So lining that up with the valve, and then first thing for fitting this one up is getting that right over. Actually, we can line that logo up after we've done this. So getting it right over everything. It's just sitting floppy over the whole lot, not in any beads yet. Now's the important time for you to line up that A. tuck that bit in first. And working your way around, just pushing it in. You got to fight the Cush Core a little bit, push it away, tuck in the tyre. And then you'll get yourself to a fairly tight spot like that. And this is where we get the tyre levers. If you had their fancy new Cush Core tool, the bead dropper, that's where this comes in. So what you have to do is push hard on the bead, and we're trying to drop that into the center of the rim well, so like deep into here. And that gives you the slack you need over the other end to be able to pop that on. So we'll start where it's troublesome and drop that in. You can see it's sort of tucking in. Once we've dropped it in all the way around, put some more of this back in. Alright, one side success. Flip it over and repeat again on this other side. So tucking in at the valve, get to the tight spot, dropping in the bead. No one said this was going to be easy, but it is worth it. Checking in this last bit. There we go, and we're in. That wasn't so bad, was it? Now you got to pump it up. You can usually get away with this with the floor pump. So the Cush Core is pushing hard on the bead on the inside, and that'll hopefully hold the bead into the rim, and we should be able to just pump it up using this and not having to use an air compressor. So definitely harder than fitting your average tyre, but not that much harder, and I think it's worth the time investment for the protection and the extra trail damping. So next step, to get the sealant in, they actually supply you with this little plastic tool. It's just good enough for a few uses. And two little flats on the valve. Undo that, just the core itself, not the whole valve. Make sure you hang on to it because it does shoot across the room. And then you'll be able to gun in your sealant using one of these little squeezy bottles, or a bigger one with a hose if you've got that. Depends on your kit. So that just plugs on the end, making sure that it's not at the top or at the bottom, so it's on the side. And the reason for that is you're working with gravity. Sealant will go in and drop down to the bottom rather than going up and then squirting back all over you, or going down and then coming back at you. So putting it in at the side, squeezing it all in. If you've only got one of these little bottles, that's 60 ml. I usually run about 120 ml of sealant in there. So when the time comes to remove your Cush Core, or to remove the tyre to replace a new tyre, that's where this guy comes in. I came up with this myself after fighting with tyre levers for a while. This was an offcut of the fence posts up at O'Halloran Hill, so I found that in the car park up there. So props to those guys. I just smoothed the edge over. It was already that shape, so it worked out perfect. Just added the sticker, and I just use that on the very edge of the bead, so the rim will sit just on this side and the bead of the tyre on that side, and you just push hard down on it. And lining it up like that, and then works better on the floor, but pushing it in there, it's got it. So then that's dropped that first bit of the bead. That's the hardest bit of the removal. So you've got your initial bead dropped by the fancy piece of fence post, and then carry on all the way around, dropping that bead back into the rim well, and then we'll pick a spot to pop out. Alright, got it dropped all the way around. I'm going to need two tyre levers for this part, so put two in side by side, You've got a couple of inches between. Pop them up together, and whilst holding that one, tuck this one back in again, just a little bit further down the way. Pop it out again, and carry on doing that. Like that, until you've got enough of the tyre out, and then you can make sure you run the back of the tyre lever around there so you don't have any sharp corners. All the way around like that. And then usually what's easiest is pushing the actual Cush Core out, so lifting it up with your fingers. Once you've got one part of it off, and the rest of it pretty easy after that. So you got him out there. Don't forget this will be covered in disgusting old sealant. Got that out, and then the rest of the tyre will come off nice and easy. Done. Thanks for watching this week's Trials and Tribulations. Hope you've learnt something, and see you next week where we get the brakes going.